Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 16th Annual CineYouth Festival Q&A for Personal Climate Crisis Program. My name is Mykhailo Bogdanov, and I'm on the CineYouth Programming Committee. I completed my undergraduate degree in film at DePaul University, and currently I'm in Environmental Science graduate program at DePaul University as well. We are thrilled to be welcoming these filmmakers to this Q&A. I'm going to ask everyone to introduce themselves and say a word or two about the film they are presenting. And let's start with Rihanna.
Hi, I'm Rihanna. I created, directed, edited the film on shopping, which surrounds consumerism and sort of the paranoia that has to do with that, and along with sort of consumerism and how that's encouraged by corporations. And so, yeah, I created the film essentially to start conversation about climate change and how that is controlled by people with a lot more money and power than us.
Great. Leonardo Martinelli.
Hello, my name is Leonardo Martinelli. I'm from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. My short film is called The Pleasure of Killing Bugs, or in Portuguese, the original title is O Prazer de Matar Insetos. It is a short film about a near future where a nun and a priest meet to talk about the disappearance of insects. It is an hybrid short film, kind of brings some experimental elements to it, and it's a lot inspired by the paintings of the surrealist René Magritte. It was done with a very small budget, like translating to dollars, it would be like $400. So, but it has been a very nice festival circuit until now. We're very happy to have our US premiere with you guys. Very nice to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Kate, what about you?
Hi, my name is Kate, and I'm the creator of Metamorphism. And so basically, Metamorphism is a short animated claymation experimental film about the tie between the process of metamorphism and humans, and how we deal with the pressures and stress in our life, and how these pressures have formed us, like how metamorphism has formed rocks. Yeah, super excited to be here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Lauren?
Hi, I'm Lauren. My film is called Those Who Move Mountains. It's a narrative film that takes place in a near future. And I wrote and directed this film in the last year of the Trump presidency. So it was kind of inspired by if all the current political trends at that time continued on the same trajectory that they were going on, sort of the future that I imagined, like a world where only white men have power, people have lost their connection to nature. A lot of the rollbacks of natural protections in the US was something that really bothered me, mass incarceration, things like that. So it's just a young woman living in that world, and sort of what I thought that would look like, and what my fear that our world would look like not that long from now. It was my senior film at Northwestern. The entire crew was comprised of Northwestern students, and all of the actors were local Chicago actors. And I'm really excited to be here too.
Awesome. And finally, Leonardo.
Hi, my name is Leonardo. I made Earth Head Issues Loading. The film was made, I think, I finished it like when the pandemic hit. It's a meditation on humans, our relationship with nature and technology. It's a 3-part film that uses 60mm digital and CGI. And yeah, I'm excited to be on this program. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone. I just want to say all your films are just so impactful, and I'm super excited to be here also and chat with you about it. And I guess I will start from Rihanna first, and I want to just kind of like talk a little bit about your film, and just want to ask you overall about the idea behind the editing. I feel like you had so many layers in there, and you had some experimental approach to it, and just as a cinematography overall, it was very well done. So can you just say a few words, like how you put it all together?
Yeah, it's really important for me to start thinking with editing. I usually identify as a video editor. Because of the pandemic, I was running a crew that was just myself. So I had to take on a lot of roles, but like it started with editing because it was for like a class project in my senior year. I was being challenged to work with archival material, which you see in the film. I use a lot of H&M commercials. I watch basically every H&M commercial there is. And so the reason the film is sort of like a strange experimental comedy is because there is sort of an inherent comedy in those very creepy commercials. So yeah, it really started from that. And then going into cinematography, I just sort of wanted to create a sort of a sense of unreality and like sort of build on that paranoia that you get from those very uncomfortable commercials, or you get a sense that like something is wrong, but it's sort of dressed up in a very glossy coating. So that's sort of the inspiration for the entire thing.
Wow, I like your answer, the way you presented it by saying that they are so bizarre, those commercials, and feel like we all kind of like almost like as a consumers blinded by that, and you as an artist, you recognize that and you show it to us. It's very powerful. I'm gonna be keep asking questions, kind of like in the clockwise order, but I have still a lot of questions to ask. Leonardo Marinelli, I was so also like impressed by your film, and I kind of like that. Really want to ask you a question about opening shot that is that tree and the moon goes through the tree, and it reminded me so much one of my favorite paintings. It's called The Banquet by René Magritte, and I don't know if you, in a way, were inspired by that. Just was opening. I don't know if you're aware of it.
Yes, the film was really inspired by the paintings of Magritte, and the film has this concept like of many things being out of place all the time. There's this like current concept, this motif that brings the film. It's a narrative construction. There's like things being out of place in a metaphorical way that's representing the relationship with humanity and the environment, but not only environment, but as political status of what is around the environmental crisis, because how intrinsic it is to the relations, the political relations that the world has built itself, and the political deeply crisis that Brazil is right now, and all those things. So we try to make a visual representation of that, how visually grasp what is to be completely out of place, what is a nation that is deepening itself in chaos, and well, all those things that Brazil and some other countries are going right now.
Yeah, you definitely see the contrast between paintings in your work, and it's so powerful. And I just why I mentioned the art by René Magritte, because the original painting actually here in Chicago, in Art Institute of Chicago, and wish you will be part. We will all be part of a live event, and you will be able to go and see the original. That you would see that reference so much in it. But yeah, thank you for your answer. Kate, I want to go and ask you a question about your brilliant piece of animation, and just kind of ask, like, what was the idea behind creating this piece of art? And in the way I found, you almost like created like I don't know, extra dimension to us and layer so many things, and um, it was just very powerful. Can you just say about the process of creating it?
Yeah, sure. So originally I kind of just had this footage lying around from a trip my family took to Terralingua, Texas, and they have these ginormous and beautiful just like mountain ranges there. And so I had this footage lying around, and I wanted to mess around with animation, and I just thought about like how long the rocks really have been there and what they've been through, and it kind of inspired me in a way, like how these rocks have been able to go through so much, and how I can, this is going to sound super cliche, but how I'm able to make it through so much as well. So I kind of thought that maybe I could make some experimental film, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you. It was just, I really enjoyed that as any other film, but like the way you constructed and combined animation to it, that was very powerful. All right, Lauren, I'm gonna ask you a question about your great film, and I just gonna want to start with like, I will try not to butcher this quote for your script, but it was so powerful when one of your main characters said, "My life is over," and the other character answer, "Your life just begun. You're liberated." I found it so powerful the way you presented it, and kind of like created this parallels between individual freedom and fighting new paths in this almost like crazy environment that you again created in your film. And just really want you to talk a little bit more about designing it, almost like.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think with that particular quote, something I was going for, well, I guess backing up a beat, like I spent a lot of my childhood in nature, like camping and in the woods and stuff. And when I got older, I sort of realized that many people didn't do that. Like a lot of people I surrounded myself with had never been camping, had never spent a night, not inside, not under a roof. And I just sort of have been feeling a lot like humanity is losing their connection with nature. And then sort of like when these political, I was really upset, like when the Trump administration was rolling back protections on national parks and national forests and things like that. In this world where being outside of the cities, outside of civilization and infrastructure is sort of a punishment, I wanted to point out that being in connection with nature and being with nature is actually how humans are meant to live. Like we've been on this earth for like hundreds of millions of years, or I don't know science, so I don't know the exact numbers, but this is how we're sort of meant to live. And also understanding that you don't have to live inside the system to be not successful, but you don't have to be a part of the system to live your life.
Awesome. Thank you for this great answer. That's exactly what kind of like I took it from it. And I feel like this idea is almost like uncomfortable for nowadays societies to kind of just, understand that we have already so many things that we almost forgot what really we, in the end, we need. When you just showing like how you did brilliantly in this film, kind of the bare bones, the skeleton, and these supporting characters are just saying that, well, that's how it is actually, and you need to. And it's like, oh my gosh, but I lost everything. But what is really everything? So it was a great idea behind it. Another, I want to talk about your film a little bit and ask you a question. The sort of like, I was really like impressed by the stillness that you created in your film, and how powerful that stillness was. Before I forget, I really want to mention, I don't know if you're aware of album, it's called Tomorrow's Harvest by Birds of Canada, electronic duo from Canada. They're this kind of dystopian ideas in their album presented. Like I felt this unique energy that I experienced only from the musical album and from your film. And I just really want to hear a little bit more how you succeeded in creating this stillness at the same time the power behind it?
I mean, the whole film, I think it's like kind of structured in a way that it is about these landscapes that you're looking at and kind of meditation on these places and how you create relationships on the between shots. And I mean, I think you're commenting about the fire section, right? Like when that, yeah, yeah, that was like how to bring um, more energy to such a still picture in a way that I was like, because that was my first year living in California, and I was like living so close to those fires, and I was not used to that. And I think the musical creation on my side was like trying to bring that emotion of being there. Like it's windy, the camera was like really followed at some point. That wasn't like made for the film, that ended up being in the film, but um yeah, it's like that it's kind of scary. Like I haven't experienced that until then, and now like it's almost every year it's like, oh, it's fire season, it became normal. But at that time, that I think represents how I feel. Like that, like it's kind of a dark rumble that just consumes like you and leaves you on the edge of the seat instead of just watching something. I was thinking about either doing that silently or this way, but I think this was the best choice.
Yeah, I guess the idea of putting this sort of experimental music that you layered it with, it really made it being like very deep in a way. And I kind of like understand in a way personally your approach of saying that was my first year in California, me being an immigrant in this country as well, kind of like just seeing your new environment and being like a filmmaker or any artist, you just, because you're so fresh in this environment, you kind of experiencing like almost like an alien. And I really appreciate that fresh look and putting it all together and showing to us. It was great. Okay, so I'm just gonna go and ask first question from the audience to Rihanna, and the question is, it's a very perceptive look into modern consumer manipulation. Can you talk about the idea of advertisements discussed as a corporate charity?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I really like this question because that is sort of the thesis of the whole film. That, and it's really funny, I guess. It's not actually funny, but in a way that you sort of feel yourself being controlled by things that you can't really stop. This sort of like corporate charity thing, this narrative that they have. It's really like not just, oh, we're doing this for the environment, but we're doing this for you because the guilt is on you for having bought these things. So like essentially what the film's about is about like consumer responsibility, and the sort of newest trend that corporations have taken on is like you can be an ethical consumer. Essentially, you can recycle your clothes, you can donate your clothes, you can buy clothes made of plastic bottles, and that sort of implies that it's your fault or the guilt is on you when you, as someone buying something, you have the smallest impact if you were to recycle that or donate that, when they, as producers, are really the only people who can make an impact. So it has like a sickening type of comedy, I guess. And so, yeah, these advertisements disguised as corporate charity feel almost dystopian, feel like a very like large lie that's being passed on you. And that's what the whole film is built on.
Yeah, definitely. It's there's this term in sort of it's called greenwashing. I don't know if you're aware of it, and it's kind of the whole idea behind this, especially H&M. It's they're trying to cover it all nice green and put some green leaves on there and just pretend that let's not feel guilty about it. So I really enjoyed it as well how you explain. But I just want to point out that part in your film, it was really striking when it was about the discount and your character, I mean, you saying, why would I need that discount? Again, kind of that realization, kind of being away and be like, wait a second, something's fishy here. Yeah, it was great. Okay, so I will just move on and ask Leonardo Martinelli a question about your sort of like inspiration behind connecting religious environmental aspect. I find it deeply like interesting because I feel like you kind of almost explore the like spiritual idea behind the nature and faith and believe, almost like. And like I really want to hear like how did you find a way to connect all these things?
Thank you very much for your question. I think that the climate crisis and religion, not only Christianity, but many other religions, are subjects that have an interesting connection. Uh, One film that explores this very, very well is First Reformed by Paul Schrader. It was one of our inspirations uh, because there are some religions in Christianity, especially, I don't know the translation in English, but evangelicals in Portuguese is evangélicos. It's one of the versions from Christianity in Brazil. It's very strong, and there are people who very strongly deny the climate crisis. And it's saying by if it is a problem, then God will solve it or not solve it. It's relying on the will of God. So I think there's a very deep connection. There is a problem as well. Is people that are blinding themselves from a collective issue, or an issue that has to be resolved collectively and with the government. So it is a big problem in Brazil as well. And I think it is more than that. Besides the connection, is also a spiritual connection. How do we manage to connect ourselves to nature in a more than physical way? Although I'm not Christian. I think that has a lot of issues that are interesting in about that. I believe the film doesn't make really doesn't judge that in that way. It just tries to bring that connection as one more layer than what is possible to think about this connection with humanity and nature.
Great. Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate the idea of bringing to the surface and kind of like almost representing it, like you said, not in judgmental way, but just in artistic way, the important issues and kind of like connections of all of them. Kate, I have a question for you from the audience. How did you put together the sound design? How did you layer the animations?
Yeah, thank you for the question, chat. I guess the way I wanted the sound design to kind of be was to, in a way, inflict what kind of, in a auditory way, I don't know if auditory is a word, but I'm gonna say it, like how I kind of perceive my stress level to be, especially during like really stressful situations. So I kind of wanted it to feel eerie and like not really able to spot the certain sounds and sound effects that are going on. And for the animation, I used a program called Dragon Frame and kind of animated on top of a green screen and then keyed out the green part to overlay the animation on top of my camcorder footage. Yeah.
Wow. A lot of elements belongs to that, and very interesting to hear exactly how you did it, because it's like I said, a lot of layers there. Lauren, I want to ask you a question, sort of like in terms of like your directional kind of steps, like how difficult it was to work in such a open nature, kind of like. And is there anything you can share with directors, filmmakers that you experienced, and maybe kind of give advice on something, or how would it go?
Yeah. So it's definitely not easy. But I was really I don't know if you want to say fortunate or unfortunate to have been on a lot of outdoor sets, especially a lot of student sets at Northwestern. So I was sort of prepared. I like watching other people run sets outside for going into it. But I think the biggest thing is when I was recruiting people onto the project, like all crew and then all actors, like the very first thing I asked is like, are you comfortable outside? Like, if there is a bug, will you be okay? Like, there's not gonna, I mean, we'll bring folding chairs and apple boxes, but you're not gonna have like your own, for actors, you're not gonna have a room to get ready in. You're not like, there'll be a folding table for food and like, that's it. Like, it's not gonna be comfortable. Are you okay with that? Um, and the people who said yes, that doesn't bother me were I mean, obviously I pick people for their many talents, of course, but I was very upfront with people right away because if there was someone who was like, I'm not gonna be super happy like acting in the dirt, then they weren't right for this project because that's what it's about. And I was just very clear with people that it was gonna be a bit of a rougher set. The morning on the Lakeville, I made my crew get up at like 4 a.m. so we could be prepared for that. It was really cold. Um, but everyone was really, really great about it. I'm like very grateful that everyone was willing to do that, obviously, and just finding people who were passionate enough about the project and great workers that were willing to brave the elements in any way, shape, or form. And we did as best as we could. Like we had a lot of cars, we had a lot of like folding tables and blankets and folding chairs and stuff. But at the end of the day, you had to be okay to get down and dirty. And when I say down and dirty, I mean literally in dirt.
Yes, thank you. I think you did also well. Besides describing as after film for Q&A, I think you succeeded very well in these small shots of showing kind of like where she's passing by in front of the camera, and she sees the snake and she reacts to it. And she jumps, she runs away. Kind of just like little nuances here and there, kind of like this stuff is real. We are here. It's a nature. I feel like a lot of filmmakers forget to include those small things. Or when you showed the mud in front of her and her dirty boots, and it was it was great fit and made it more realistic and powerful, I think. Leonardo, I want to ask you first question from the audience. And the question is your shift from 16 millimeters film to digital photography. Can you talk about why you made that change halfway through?
Because I cannot plan when fires happen. And at the time I didn't have a 16 millimeter camera myself, so I couldn't like on the day of like go out and get one, I couldn't plan for that. So I just had like my digital, my Sony camera, and then I had to like transition from what I had shot in the beginning, like kind of placing this film together because it's kind of a documentary in the sense that I was like gathering footage throughout, and yeah, and then I had to like create also an ending that would create like more sense in this like 3-part film, like something that would have to change the medium as well. So that's why it becomes like this aerial CGI. Um, yeah, um, yeah. But I think also was like my transition film. Like now I'm only working on 16. My most recent film is like a 20-minute film that's entirely in 16, and that's where I'm heading now. So yeah, it was like a transitional film for me too, and like experimenting with that medium and dipping my toes into that.
Yeah. You mentioned the 3D segment, and I kind of just want to ask, like, can you explain it more? Like, it was so kind of like it shifted the storyline to different kind of like level, and I like how sudden you did it, and I just want to hear about the process of creating that part. How did you go about that?
It was like kind of building upon the footage that I had of the camera filming the fires and being like knocked out with the wind, almost falling downhill. But I was like, okay, I have like this camera that falls. I don't want to use a shot, and then like, okay, I have like a very long shot of like 30 minutes. So I had to like pick the part that I wanted. And then I was like trying to figure it out, like how should I end this film, but also how should I begin this film, like to make it, a parallel that works. And I think the beginning is the part that I created when I decided to create this CGI in the end, and it's basically a tool that is Google Earth, but studio beta. It's like you sign up to use it, and then um, yeah, you can like it's basically, if you guys know After Effects, basically an After Effects with like a 3D camera that you can like keyframe it. So I had to like force a glitch and like go inside of the planet instead of just, it's a complicated process to force it to do that. I think I tried it recently. They corrected, you cannot do it anymore. But yeah.
Wow. It was a happy glitch, almost like it was very well done. Rena, I want to ask you another question, but I want to first say another very interesting part from your film. I found it fascinating when you said we will decompose faster than any of those stuff. Um, it was. Just kind of great highlight of the film, and I just want to know more, what was the process behind writing for this film was, and also if you can talk a little more about the famous ending, like how did you come up with that too?
Yeah, those sort of thoughts. As far as writing goes, because I was working on my own, I had like a couple, like 3 months to create the film on top of being in school with other production classes. And also being my whole crew. So writing, I sort of took in segments, and like I basically wrote while I did it, and the script changed a lot. But yeah, so as far as that ending part goes, that also came in the beginning. A lot of the visuals I was just thinking up as I was sort of writing a treatment for the film, and it's sort of just like, I guess I wanted to go sort of more with experimental visuals, and experimental sort of cinematography, and like feelings that this is unreal, I guess. So trying to create a visual where the corporate overlords, Carl Johan Persson, the CEO of H&M, I essentially wanted to picture him as like so much larger than me, but also unable to speak back to me. Essentially, like we have such a divide between us that it's like ludicrous, and so that's where that visual came from. Yeah.
Awesome. um, Leonardo Martinelli, I have a question from audience for you. Can you talk about how your film relates to the current state of Brazil and its policies?
Thank you very much for the question. Well, Brazil has been in a very complicated political situation since ever, basically, but more intensely for the last uh, 7, 8 years since the impeachment of Dilma Rousseff. Uh, so basically, Brazil got in a very far right election right now. For the we have basically have our own tropical Trump, like a Trump that is, I believe, even more inconsequential. Uh, and the film brings those issues, like the political issues that Brazil is deepening itself into, not directly, I believe. I believe we that is because there are things that are inevitably related. So it is inevitable when you bring one of the subjects, you have to bring another. I don't think that's a problem at all. I just think it is a very delicate way that we have to put this, especially because Brazil has so many problems right now that the environmental ones simply aren't the biggest ones in our minds. And that's is a huge issue because this will come back later. This will surely come back later for the whole of the world. Because Brazil, like we live, like just today, literally today, 25 people were murdered a few kilometers from my house on a police raid on a favela. 25 people today, like this morning. And so we simply don't think as much about the environmental crisis because our neighbors are being murdered constantly. So we have some things that are more urgent right now, and as well as the pandemic and so many things. And so basically, it's a cry for help the whole time. The film is like that. So I think the film is even kind of peaceful in a way that the end of the world brings us to this situation. So that's it. Brazil is in a very complicated time right now, extremely complicated. And thank you for the selection because it's always good to have our voice shown outside of other countries.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. Um, Kate, I want to ask you a question about your preparation of gathering the footage, because clearly you picked a very complex um, subject and you diving into it. You use a lot of archival footage, like you said, but did you spend a lot of time in researching the idea of metamorphism in any way, or in what was your process behind it?
Yeah, so when I was shooting the camcorder footage, I didn't do it with the intent of creating a short film. I thought I would like maybe just put some music over it and make a travel video or something like that. But when I was thinking about making an experimental film and thinking about that footage and how I actually could use that for a film, my sister at the time, she was really into like rocks and geology. So she, during that trip, she would explain the different rocks and the ones that we were looking at and stuff like that. And she talked about metamorphism quite a bit. So I kind of thought about that and went into some light research before really feeling inspired by it.
Awesome, thank you. Lauren, I have a question from the audience. Can you talk about the relationship between society and nature as expressed in the film?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I have been feeling that the I guess the perception and the way that the general public feels is that society and nature are inherent opposites. That society is civilized with order and rules, and nature is wild, uncivilized, undeveloped. And I don't know if that's necessarily true, or I personally don't like that that's the perception. But for example, like, I've talked to people about, oh, have you ever been camping? Have you ever been hiking? And it's kind of like, oh, we go camping, we spend a night out in the wilderness, but now I can't wait to come back and take a shower and eat food and go to a restaurant and have my coffee and all that kind of stuff. But I think that being in nature allows you to feel free from a lot of the constraints of society, like in terms of appearance, social behavior, and things like that. So yeah, I think there's a really interesting relationship to be explored. Definitely something that one of the motivations for making this film was to explore that relationship. And I'm definitely something I can want to continue to explore for sure.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, definitely. It's interesting how we are experiencing, all of us there, this disconnect, and I feel like we need to go back to it to understand it a little more, because it's part of us as we're part of it. Leonardo, I have a question for you. You already mentioned some challenges during your film. I kind of like want to know, since you're shooting on film and it's a limited amount that you can do with it, and then you shift to digital. But still, were there like a lot of footage that you shot for something like this? or do you usually shoot more than like, and trying to use your best out of it? Sort of like, what is your process behind? Are you careful with the film? How careful? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I think I don't know. I was starting to use film, so I was a little more, I think, conservative on my waste or like use of it. Currently, like I just film. I mean, my films are really planned out in the way of that I film, and I don't know, I'm very systematic about my shooting. So in a way, I can like end up to a 3-to-1 ratio of usage. So I think it's not. I don't know. I don't see it as a problem. Like I'm doing it as my only practice right now. The latest film that I just finished, haven't screened yet. It's like 20 minutes, and I think I shot like an hour or so, like footage. There's like a lot of long shots, but yeah. I mean that's I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Because I'm asking this question because more and more people are shooting in digital, and someone who just keep going with the film, I find it fascinating. So thank you for that. Well, we are coming to the end of our time for this discussion. Thank you very much, guys. I want to thank you, all of you, for sharing your films with us and joining us today for this conversation. I hope everyone watching enjoyed the films, and be sure to check out the other programs in the festival. Thank you again, and stay safe, guys.